Hello and welcome to the Dailyaus. My name is Sam Koslowski.
I'm Billi FitzSimons.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has nominated US President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. It comes after Pakistan's government also nominated him in June, making it Trump's second nomination in 6 months. But what actually is a Nobel Peace Prize, and how do we get one? Today, we're going to have a look at what these nominations mean and why Trump has been pursuing this prize so carefully since his first term in office.
Sam, I like how you said, how do we get one, as though it's something that we could do.
Look, I don't think we should be closing ourselves off in our 20s and 30s to the heights of winning a Nobel Peace Prize.
But I'm also not sure that we should set that expectation on ourselves.
I've settled some arguments in the office, and I think that some of those have been so explosive that it's worth the Peace Prize.
Okay, moving on from what I would argue is actually quite small office arguments, but I guess that is subjective. Before we get into the specifics of these nominations, do you want to explain what actually is a Nobel Peace Prize?
So it's essentially a group of prizes run by a committee. And the committee is named after Alfred Nobel, who was an inventor. He was the inventor of dynamite, amongst other things. And the committee awards an annual group of prizes for achievements in economics, physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace, which we're talking about today.
So peace, the Nobel Peace Prize is just one of the awards of the Nobel Prizes that you can get.
Exactly. And what you'll notice from that list is that most of them are actually science-based or have some sort of kind of numbers and laws of the universe behind it, and peace and literature, probably the ones that are more on the creative and more abstract side of things. And the Peace Prize is really interesting because it's awarded to one person or group a year, and there's 5 areas that they look at. And if you've made progress in one of the 5, then you're eligible for the award. And so the first is the control of weapons and disarmament. The second is peace negotiations. The third is democracy and human rights. The fourth is what they call creating a better organized and more peaceful world. And the fifth is limiting the effects of climate change. And if you have made progress in one of them and you have the right person nominating you, and we'll get to that in a sec, you're in the running for one of the most prestigious prizes on the planet.
I feel like progress is an understatement. Like if you're a pioneer in one of those areas, I'm sure. It's not easy.
You have to be the headline.
Yes.
And that's why there's, for a global prize, there's not that many nominations every year, a couple of hundred every year. And when you think about how much happens in our world of 7 billion, that's pretty remarkable.
8 billion.
8 billion,
even.
wow, true.
And so we're talking about it today because US President Donald Trump has been nominated by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm interested, is there precedent for US presidents being nominated or being awarded it?
So there's been 4 US presidents that have been awarded the Peace Prize in the past. The one most recently to win the prize was Barack Obama in 2009. Really interesting case, that one, because he won it only a couple of months into his presidency. So he was elected to office at the end of 2008, took office at the beginning of 2009, and won a prize by the end of that year.
Why did he get it?
So he got it because the committee recognized his work in beginning nuclear disarmament talks with Iran, as well as more normalized relationships with countries across the Middle East. So there wasn't a specific single act that got him that prize. It was more of his approach to diplomacy being recognized.
So just to be clear, Barack Obama got it because of nuclear de-escalation in Iran.
Yeah, which
is
in the current context is fascinating.
Yeah.
He also didn't even get it for, disarming Iran or anything. He got it for beginning talks, and it formed part of the recognition of his work across the Middle East.
Yeah, wow. So interesting looking back on it now. Who are the other type of people who typically win something like the Nobel Peace Prize?
So it's not just US presidents that take out this award. Other names that you're going to know would be Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, and Malala have been some of the winners. And you get a sense from that cohort really of you really have to be quite remarkable and really make an impact on humanity to win this award.
And who nominates you, or how does someone get nominated?
So it's quite broad. Any university professor can nominate somebody for the Nobel Prize. You can be a leader of a peace research institute. You can be a member of a national assembly or government. So our Prime Minister could nominate somebody, or any member of the House of Reps or the Senate. If you're a judge at an international court of law, as well as if you're a previous winner of a Nobel Peace Prize, that's the cohort of people who can nominate somebody. And one important thing to note is that nominations for the 2025 prize closed in January. So this nomination that Trump has got in the last week or so will be considered for the 2026 award. Now, this is a very, very secret process by the committee, and the full list of nominees will only be released in 50 years' time. So there's a 50-year gap. We don't get any information about a shortlist or who just missed out. It's quite a secret process, and then 5 decades until we figure out, whether somebody was nominated and didn't get it.
So that means that this year we should be finding out who was nominated in 1975.
Yes, interestingly.
Okay, and so the nominations aren't always released, but we're kind of, I guess, in this unusual place where we do know that Donald Trump was nominated because that is what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Trump, and that was broadcast all over the world. So tell me more about that nomination.
Hey, I'm Harry. I'm the political journalist here at The Daily Oz. If you like this video, you can subscribe so that you don't miss any of our future ones, and you can see more of our great stuff. Now, back to the deep dive.
So Netanyahu visited Trump at the White House this week in the context of continuing peace talks to try and figure out how to get to a ceasefire in the ongoing conflict in Gaza. It's now in its 22nd month. So there's real efforts to try and figure out how to bring a long and lasting peace to that region. They were sitting across from each other, the two parties, Netanyahu leading the Israeli delegation, Trump with the American, and Netanyahu essentially reaches over and passes Trump a letter. And that letter was the nomination letter to the Norwegian Nobel Committee. The Israeli leader said Trump is, quote, forging peace as we speak, one country and one region after the other. Now, all of this comes in the context of the US launching a series of strikes against Iranian nuclear sites, support of Israel's war with Iran and in Gaza, and support of different conflicts all over the Middle East, Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's been a very tumultuous couple of years in that region. And the context of the nomination was that Netanyahu basically said that Trump was helping one conflict at a time make that region a safer place of the world.
Right. And you mentioned that Pakistan also nominated Trump.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, firstly, I think it's really interesting that we know about both of these, as you were
Yes.
saying before. But in May, Pakistan and India exchanged missile and drone strikes after India alleged a Pakistani-supported group carried out a terrorist attack in the disputed region of Kashmir. Now, the US took credit for the ceasefire negotiations between the two nations. We did a podcast on it at the time. It was quite a quick episode and didn't escalate to the heights that other people expected it to. Now, Pakistan's government subsequently nominated Trump for his, quote, decisive diplomatic intervention and pivotal leadership during the recent India-Pakistan crisis. India's government has disputed that the US played any role in the peace process. And you can't ignore the political elements to a public nomination of Trump. We know the leadership style of the current US president. We know that he it responds well to being told he's doing a good job. And so many commentators are saying it's actually being used as a bit of a tool to improve relationships with the US.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, even in the example of Benjamin Netanyahu, we know that Trump, after the Israel-Iran war, that he did have some stern words to say about Netanyahu and Israel and also Iran. So it's interesting, kind of this full 180.
Yeah, and to understand the significance of the prize to President Trump, you have to go back to his first term. And when you realize that this is actually his sixth nomination since 2018, you start to get a real sense of how important this prize is to him.
His sixth that we know of.
His sixth that we know of, true. So he was nominated in his first term for his work in easing tensions with North Korea and a nomination for his work on the Abraham Accords.
And again, I presume we know about that because whoever nominated them made that public?
Yes. Well, actually, in both of those cases, I think it was President Trump made it public about his nominations. He uses his social media platforms to talk a lot about his nominations. And as recently as last month, he posted on Truth Social. It's quite long. I'm going to read it. It's really important. important. It says, I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping the war between India and Pakistan. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping the war between Serbia and Kosovo. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for keeping peace between Egypt and Ethiopia. And I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for doing the Abraham Accords in the Middle East. No, I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize no matter what I do.
It's interesting that he's almost campaigning to get this Nobel Peace Prize. Is that normal that nominees would be so vocal about it?
It's not normal. And I think the private nomination and evaluation process lends itself to it being more of an honor bestowed upon you that you only recognize after you've gotten it, not before. And it definitely is unusual for it to be approached in this sort of campaigning manner. It's also unusual that President Trump has criticized past winners of the Nobel Peace Prize. So I mentioned at the top that President Barack Obama won it a couple of months into his presidency. In 2019, Trump criticized Obama, saying they gave one to Obama immediately upon his ascent to the presidency, and he had no idea why he got it. So this is really being viewed as kind of almost a campaign to be elected. You're right.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that he has criticized Barack Obama.
No, and there's a strong political sense to the context of that comment as well. Trump was getting ready to run for a presidential nomination himself. But it's definitely not the norm for this award to be politicized like it has been.
Yeah, he's being very competitive about this.
Yeah.
What do we know about his competition?
Well, we know that there's quite a few in the race. So the Nobel Prize Committee releases some kind of preliminary data giving us a sense of how many entrants they've received. This year, there are already 318 candidates for the Peace Prize. That's 211 individuals and 107 organizations that are being nominated. And that's actually the fourth highest number of candidates in the awards history. And there's still a couple of months to go in this. So as we said before, the nominations for this year's prize, which will be handed out in December, they've closed already. So there will be a winner of the Peace Prize that we'll hear about for 2025 in December, on December 10, which is the anniversary of Nobel's death. Trump will then be in the candidate pool for next year's prize. He'll get a file made up about him. It'll have the Israeli letter and the Pakistani letter, as well as others we might not know about. And the committee will evaluate the winners and decide it by blind ballot. Now, one interesting fact, the committee has actually cancelled the prize during years of conflict. So when in years that they feel like it's not appropriate to give out a peace prize, they don't. And so that's happened most recently in World War II. And it's an interesting element of, we've spoken a lot on this podcast today about the political angle of the prize. And when I read that, I thought, well, the committee itself has a bit of kind of political commentary that it can make by cancelling the prize altogether. So it's a good sign for the world that the prize is still being handed out this year. It means we're not at the depths of, abandoning peace, but we'll have to wait until December 10 to figure out if he's actually won the one prize it seems that he cannot figure out how to get over the line.
Before we go, Sam,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to discuss what's the likelihood that Donald Trump could actually get this, because I think some people dismiss it, but there is a conversation here about whether or not it's possible that he could get it.
Yeah, and I've been noticing in a lot of the international media coverage about this story, and I think we've probably lent into that a little bit today as well. You do, because of the way that Trump
Talks about it,
particularly on Truth Social, it can lend itself to a bit of a kind of comedic discussion. There are strong credentials that he can bring to this sort of process. I mean, at the time of recording, there seems to be a holding ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and that Iran's nuclear capabilities have been severely set back because of a limited US operation. He seems to be having a way to bring people to the table. There's also strong opposition that you can raise the fact that the Ukraine war is ongoing, the war in Gaza is still ongoing. But I just want to make sure that we bring a bit of balance to this discussion, because it's very easy to just dismiss it based on how he talks about it. But there are ways that he has improved the spread of peace in the world. And as kind of politically obtuse as that is to say, it needs to be said.
And I feel like I've also often heard him say the fact that in his first term, he was one of the only US presidents in recent memory that didn't enter a war or didn't allow the US to enter a war.
Yeah, he's taking his kind of business building school of thought into the world of diplomacy, and it's now up to the committee to figure out whether that qualifies it for an award.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking us through it, and I guess we will find out on the 10th of December 2026.
Yeah, we'll be right here.
Whether or not he will get it. So we will keep everyone updated then. But until then, we hope you have a lovely day. We'll be back this afternoon with your evening headlines. But until then, have a good day.